Hail and well met, traveler. Welcome to the tavern. Did you know this is the place where more than half of the greatest adventures in history have begun? But before those adventurers took their first steps, they watched and calculated who would join their party. Why, look over there. There's a mighty barbarian from the Frozen Lands. Strong, mighty, full of honor and wisdom. I happen to know that one. They go by Matt Rossi. And look over there to the right. That woman working away on her mechanical dog. She's cunning, witty, and I've seen her bounce more than her fair share of ne'er-do-wells out of here before I can even blink. I happen to know that she goes by the name Liz Harper. And me? Oh, my name's Joe Perez. And I'll be your tavern keep. Welcome to Tavern Watch. Hello and welcome to another episode of Tavern Watch, where we discuss all things related to tabletop. I'm your host, Joe Perez, one of several hobby-focused folks from Blizzard Watch, and I've got my marvelous co-host with me today. That one giggling there is Liz Harper. She is the one that keeps us all in line. How are you doing today, Liz?
Hello, I'm doing pretty good.
We've got the original barbarian himself, Matt Rossi. How you doing, Matt?
I just realized last night while I was watching Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire that it's actually a Conan movie.
It really is.
And Kong is Conan, and I don't know who Godzilla would be in this scenario, like some friend of Conan's who also hates him. But regardless, it was just once that popped in my head that's what I was watching. It was like, wow, this is actually really well done.
And then you realize the Conan movies are D&D movies.
Oh, yeah, but I've already known that.
Yeah.
And for that matter, The Mummy is quite frankly the ultimate.
It's the greatest D&D movie ever made.
yeah, absolutely.
And that sign of assent and agreement with us on that Mummy movie is Phil, who's joining us yet again. I think at this point, Phil's basically our tabletop fourth chair, and I think that's just how this is going to be. And I'm okay with this. How you doing, Phil?
I got my fourth chair. I'm good. Is Godzilla Subutai in this?
Ooh.
I don't think Subutai hates Conan enough.
No. I mean, I get why you'd ask.
Yeah, they get along too well, though.
Not only that, Godzilla is way bigger and stronger than. So it's kind of like Wilt Chamberlain was in the Conan the Destroyer, including the part where they turn on each other.
Fair enough.
Although neither of the Conan movies have a giant moth that shows up and makes them play nice. That was the weirdest part of the movie to me, was when Mothra just shows up and is like, "Stop fighting!" And I swear to God, Godzilla was like, turns to Kong and it's like, "You're lucky my chick's here." Like total, like, well, that's my girlfriend. I have to be nice to you.
Well, maybe they'll make a Godzilla and King Kong role playing game if they haven't already.
I'm actually looking at the Kaiju Fighter.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about what we're reading, so I'll talk about it when we'll talk about that.
Well, why don't we just transition into that? So I guess the first question for the table, as always, is what are you currently reading? So, Matt, go ahead.
I've been digging into the Catalyst game stuff because they republished two of my favorite games. They do like a lot of Shadowrun stuff, including the 5th edition, which is not my favorite edition, just because I haven't really read through it. But I do like that they have all that Shadowrun stuff. I'm sad that they don't also have the rights to Earth Dawn. I know somebody else does, but it's always felt weird to me that they're not the same place anymore. But they also have the BattleTech and MechWarrior stuff. These are all old FASA games, all of them. Shadowrun was, MechWarrior, BattleTech were. I've been going through them all, basically because there's the Kaiju Fighter game, but that's you fighting Kaiju. And I don't want to fight Kaiju. I want a game where we just play as Kaiju. And there's not as many really good ones. There's Daikaiju Mokashi, which I've not gotten to play yet, but it's a game about giant monsters. It's a little bit more like the movies than I like, though, because it has a lot of dumb humans in them.
Well, the good news is there's a game that was on Kickstarter last year, and I think it should just be releasing right about now. That's in the Era D10 system that is literally just called Kaiju. You play as Kaiju.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet, but I of course will dig it up when I get to it.
Yeah, just
But
let you know.
I am totally down for anything. But like I'm saying, I'd love to see an actual kaiju game. Honestly, I could just build one. There's so many RPGs out with like open systems now. I could literally just find one.
There's also
I could do like, what do you call it? Oh heck, I can't remember the system, and I should. Powered by the Apocalypse. I could easily see a Powered by the Apocalypse book that's just got kaiju archetypes for you to play.
Well, there's also a lot of other games that sort of have rules that are easily adapted or already have frameworks for it. Like Lancer, believe it or not, has like a kaiju module, because essentially you just treat the kaiju as if it was your mech, and then you just go from there. There's also Everyday Heroes, which has a game based around Kong Skull Island. That's Evil Genius Games. Pacific Rim has a game that actually has both aspects of it.
I was actually looking at that because the BattleTech stuff, they have the Mech Warrior book, which is using a modified system. And it's really interesting, actually, because it's a narrative RPG. It's not just an RPG; it's a narrative RPG. Can you imagine the BattleTech art role-playing game turning into a narrative RPG? That's kind of nuts, and not in a bad way at all. That's a great thing to do. I think it was a wonderful decision. It's just that I'm looking back from the lens of a 14-year-old me walking into the arcade in Providence. And if you don't remember the arcade, it was a big mall in Providence. I think it was the oldest mall with a roof in North America. But anyway, they had a role-playing game store up there. The guy who ran it was really bizarre. Wow, that's a shock to everyone who's ever run a game store, huh? But the guy running the game store. I'm looking right at you right now, Joe.
I know.
As
I'm aware.
I say this.
I'm aware.
But he always had the hand, like he would always point me to something new and weird I had never seen. Like he's the one that got me Nexus, the Infinite City. He got me into that game.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that later. But there's literally, I have one regular customer who I do that with, and he curses me and loves me all at the same time.
Oh yeah, you're a demon.
I'm the pusher. Yeah. But that's what Matt's reading and what he's into. We'll go with Phil. What are you cracking open these days?
Let's see. So I've been cracking open one that I'm actually playing in real life, which is Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition. Traveler is fun, a little crunchier than I'm used to, but very interesting system once you learn it.
Oh, you mean? Oh, I thought you were saying Mongoose Traveler, but you're saying Traveler.
Yeah, by
from
Mongoose Publishing. Yeah,
okay. You had me there for a second.
There is it's a habit I picked up from my game master. I'm guessing to differentiate it from another edition that occurred somewhere in the middle there. I don't know enough about the history of where Traveler has been. And then let's see. I know we'll talk about this later, but since it got nominated for a Nebula, I've been rereading my copy of Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast. Very fun little kind of cozy indie game that has apparently gained some attention lately. And I don't know. I've just been I've been reading a smattering of things that I've picked up in different sales recently. Yeah, kind of all over the place right now.
All right, Liz, what about you?
Well, I'm reading Legend in the Mist, which I like the vibes. I haven't read enough of it to tell you about it, but that's all I got.
Yeah,
I started reading this one.
The vibes are very on point.
Yeah. And I like the book. The book, you're reading the book and it feels like you're reading a comic book because it just has tons of art interspersed with, explanations and statuses. And so I think it's formatted in a super cool way. But the part of the problem with tabletop games, I've just come out of running 2 polymorph system games. Which the book for the polymorph system games, we ran a game of Pigeon's 11. I think we might talk about that a little bit. And we ran a game of Sentai and Sensibility. And a polymorph system game, am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
The system they run on it's very freeform, it's very narrative focused. And, the books for them are like 60 pages. So they're not very crunchy. They're the opposite of crunchy. They're creative and crazy. And going into a game that is like lots of rules, lots of stats, not that it's complicated necessarily, but it's such a different class of game. And you get like 300-page rulebooks. I'm actually not sure how many pages this is, but it feels like a lot because I've been doing these really short narrative games. So I am interested in getting into something new. I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think the entire first chapter of Legend of the Mist might be as long as most polymorph games but that's because it's, in addition to being a comic, as you said, it's also a choose your own adventure game that teaches you the rules of the game, which is really cool.
Amazing.
Speaking
I
of,
mean, let me just really quick before we get on to whatever we're about to do. I just checked the table of contents for, again, a narrative role-playing game called MechWarrior Destiny, 241 pages.
Yeah.
For, again, it's a narrative game. It's supposed to be rules light.
Given that it's MechWarrior,
yeah.
I wonder how much of that is backstory of the MechWarrior universe, because I know there's a lot going on in MechWarrior.
That's probably.
I can tell you right now that it is a lot of backstory of the MechWarrior universe. Yes.
I was gonna say, speaking of like reading a comic book, going back to Liz's comment, I currently have purchased, to probably nobody's surprise, the latest expansion to the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game, which is Spider-Verse. Which anybody who's listened to anything I've ever produced on the internet knows that is a huge deal, and was an immediate purchase for me. It literally has 100 pages of characters, 100 pages dedicated to nothing but playable characters, including such deep cuts as Cardiac, who some people may remember from the 90s, and if you don't, it is literally a doctor who decided to go into crime to help other people, because Robin Hood is a thing at the time in the 90s. And then also some other deep cuts like Doctor Doom, which if you've ever watched Spider-Ham or read Spider-Ham, that is Doctor Doom, but as a duck, because why not? Every variation and flavor of all of the Peter Parkers, including the early day Peter Parkers from the original comic strips, and like everything in between. It is pretty comprehensive in all of the characters that it pulls in from the multiverse, including all of the Sinister Six, a bunch of different variations from different worlds. It's really, really cool. Out of all the ones that they've put out so far, this is probably my favorite book, and it's not just because it's Spider-Man, but because a lot of the other ones, like even the X-Men, like there were some okay deep cuts in there, but not as much as I would have expected. This is just like, I mean, they even put Spider-Boy in here, and Spider-Boy's like newish, like the Bailey Briggs Spider-Boy. So I'm actually really excited about that. I just started cracking into it last night. And I'm actually looking forward to getting a game together at the shop, because, again, I help run a comic shop. So, of course, I'm going to want to run a comic-based game. And my buddy Justin he just lost one of his gaming group. He just retired and moved to a different country. And he's feeling a little bit down, and I want to surprise him and be like, "Hey, what are you doing this Friday?" "Oh, great! You're staying in the shop. We're playing We're playing Marvel Heroes. Here, you can play as Kingpin. Go." And just watch him be happy. So, but that's what I'm reading, what I'm looking forward to, and I'm not really playing anything right now because the last game I got to play was Pigeon's 11. So as grateful as I am for that, I didn't really get to do a whole lot of playing recently. Time is the true final boss of all role-playing games.
I am ostensibly playing an Dolmenwood game, but one of our players dropped out due to life, and it's like we're in this kind of limbo where, okay, do we try to keep going with one less player? Also, this player was the heavy hitter in the group. Can we... So yeah, and I haven't played in like 6 weeks, and it's like, I want to know what happens when we explore this ancient tomb, and definitely don't all get killed because I have no combat skills. But that's always the problem. You want to play games, and how do you get the people? How do you get the people in the time? It's so challenging.
Yeah, and that's why I think like there's been a lot of uptick in drop-in, drop-out games, or a lot of games like we're going to be talking about Pigeon's 11 here in a second because I want Liz to gush about running the game. But like smaller, simpler games, and I shouldn't say simpler games because they can be as complicated as you want them to be, but they're games that lend themselves to one-shots or quicker sessions. Like, I literally have I think I talked about this a few recordings ago, the physical print version of Cocaine Owlbear. It's not meant to be a long-term campaign. It's meant to be like a one-shot where you and a bunch of other animals are coked out doing crimes and weird stuff, right? Like it's not anything long-term, but that's really popular these days. And one of my really good friends helps run another shop in the area that specializes in these types of games, and like him and I were talking the other day about how much of an uptick he's seen in sales of like these pamphlet style or one page style games where, you know, these are quick, easy to run. They don't require a lot of time. They don't require any prep, which I think that's the big thing. And I know we've talked about it before, and Matt and I generally don't do, like, we do what I call bullet point prepping a lot of the time, because we never know what the players are going to do. But a lot of people really feel like they have to like plan everything, and that can make some games really, really daunting.
No, don't do it. Don't plan everything.
No.
That way lies madness.
Yeah, that way lies madness, like a magical city that your players will just never go to.
Well, hey, you know, I got you on something else.
It's true.
I ran half of the adventures I was going to run in the magical city on that boat. I just put them on the boat.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to be on a magic boat? That's fine. We can do that.
Well, yeah.
I mean, and what's really funny is that's the thing about running a role-playing game at all, right? Your players don't actually know how much prep you've done.
Nope.
So if you've got stuff prepared and it's all earmarked to be in the Dwarf Kingdom and they don't ever want to go to the Dwarf Kingdom, you can just take that stuff and switch it to the Elf Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not whatever. If they don't know.
You know, make the players can think they have agency and think we're not going to go to the Magic City. We're going to get on this pirate flying boat instead. And, you know, it's the DM you can be flexible in running a game. And you not just say, okay, the players didn't want to do what I put in front of them. Oh, my game is over. Oh, I've got to come up with a whole new thing. No, you can be flexible and say, okay, well, we're going on this pirate-themed adventure now. But, you know, I planned this fight with this and this and that. Well, you know, now maybe that's on a boat in the ocean. Maybe that's on an island they're going to run into, you know? You can have set pieces and be flexible about where you put them in your world.
Since Liz is currently talking, I think it's a great idea to get her to start talking about Pigeons 11.
Well, Pigeons 11, the challenge that I have with a game like Pigeons 11 is that it has a really lack of rules. And I really like having a framework of what to do and like how things are going to work. If that makes sense, I like games with a few more rules because they give me some guidelines to work in. And Pigeons 11 is basically, you know, everybody's got a single die. DM doesn't roll any die. And it's all about storytelling. It's all about storytelling, which means there are very few game mechanics. There are very few rules. I mean, there are a handful of them to kind of educate play, but the structure of the game is completely freeform. You know, there's not a beginning, middle, of the end. And so it's a game called, I guess I should start at the beginning. It's a game called Pigeons 11. It is about being a bird and doing crime. That is what you are there for. You are a bird planning a magnificent bird heist that, you know, maybe you're raiding the buffet table at a casino, and while you're there, you're just going to, like, steal the whole, like, cash cart out of the vault or something. You know, you're there for the food because you're a pigeon, but also maybe there's something really shiny over there that you go to. So and it lives in this world that is more than a little comical because you are a bird, but no one notices you're a bird unless they like look closely. It's like they think you're totally normal, that you're a bird inside a casino or whatever. And so it leads itself to a comic kind of storytelling but it's only rated by your creativity. And I went in and I had the thought, okay, well, we're here, we're Blizzard Watch. What are we going to play? Let's go to a video game convention.
Yeah.
Because the setting it's completely agnostic. You can put it anywhere. You can do a museum heist. You could rob a train, do a great train robbery kind of thing. You could do anything. And I decided, okay, well, you know, this is kind of our thing. We're gonna do a video game convention. And one of the interesting things is I thought, you know, I should flesh out kind of this world because I made it kind of a little alternate world. And, you know, I should come up with some games that are on display in the convention. I should do this, I should do that. And I was thinking I should do all of these things. And I did a little bit. I did a little bit of work on kind of what was going on at the game convention in case anyone wanted to explore it. I came up with a lot of characters that no one interacted with, but I had them in case the story went in that direction. But the joy of a narrative game like this is that it is collaborative storytelling, and that your players can come to the table, virtual table, and they bring the stories. So I didn't come up with a whole fleet of games that were on display at this convention, but the players sure did.
Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
very 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 full of bread puns. It was great.
Yes. Yeah,
It was
I
so
did not.
good.
I did not come loaded with 100 bread-related video game puns, but everyone brought them. So that's the joy of it. You're telling a story, you're telling it together, and I've come up with some things, but it's like the players are coming up with some things. And a freeform narrative game like this really lets you do that. You're not there's nothing in your way, because it's a very rules light system, and you can just tell a story, have fun. I thought it was pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot. I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I had a lot of fun playing. I thought it was great. I thought I was trying to let other people participate more, just simply because we had a few folks with us that, and a couple of the other games, I think that I don't know if they weren't comfortable yet or if they're still trying to get in their feet wet with like the group dynamic. But I was really happy to hear them talking more and participating more. They felt way more at home with it. I think part of that has to do with the decision that you made to have it just basically heisting a game convention, which I thought they were much more comfortable with. So good job on that and that decision making. But it was a lot of fun. And I like those types of games. I like games that are like rules light-ish, because it just becomes a wacky fun time. Like if you listen to our Sunshine Sensibility, I absolutely adored that. I was so into it, and I think Matt was too. We had a pretty good time, and like we just came up with stuff on the fly, right? And those are the type of games that are fun to me. I like collaborative storytelling. I think that's one of the most fun parts of role-playing games. So, but yeah,
I foisted dinosaurs off on people.
it's true. You did.
And other prehistoric animals. I actually don't think there were that many dinosaurs in the robots that we had. There was mostly like I had a Gorgonopsid and somebody had a wolf. So there was a bunch of stuff, but it was still fun.
Yeah.
So for listeners at home, if you want to listen to stuff, Sentai and Sensibility is already out. You can check it out on our Tavern Watch feed, which is the feed you were listening to this on. Just, you've got to go back a few podcasts. And Pigeon's 11, we will be releasing very soon. So look for that probably next week as you were listening to this.
Indeed. All right. Well, I think that covers just about everything, unless there's anything else anybody wants to add. Oh, I do want to give a shout out to Steamforged Games. Real quick, not a sponsor, but if they wanted to sponsor us, y'all come talk to me. They are the now proud owners of Privateer Press's game line, which, if you are familiar with what they produce chiefly, it was originally War Machine.
Hordes and War Machine? Yeah.
Hordes and War Machine, which was the chief competitor to Warhammer 40K. They also have the Iron Kingdoms tabletop role-playing game. Everything, all of this was bought out by Steamforged Games because Privateer Press was in a rather difficult financial position. This is really good for all of the enjoyers of this content, because all of the production, all of the publishing, and everything else is going through Steamforged Games, which is solid. They've been solid for years. They have good distribution lines. They have good relationships with the distributors for local stores. And unlike other game companies, Catalyst, they believe that local game stores are important and want to make sure that they can get games into them, because without those games, they understand players, or those stores, that players don't generally get access to their games. And a shout out to them, because they are releasing a new 2-player box this month for War Machine and Hordes. This is the Horde side of it. They've already done the War Machine side, and this is essentially cat dragons is the best way I can explain it, and pirate trolls. And I got my hands on the pirate trolls early. They're absolutely lovely models, and are going to be a dream to paint up once the weather allows me to actually go outside and prime like a normal human being. So shout out to them. And if you are interested in Steamforged Games, or in Privateer Press games, you can now find them through Steamforged, which means that they're actually available and the supply lines are actually good. So that's just good news for everybody. I forgot to put that in the news section, but then I looked over at my desk and saw the giant shark troll that I had just assembled last night, and was like, I should probably mention this so that people understand that like it's a good time to be a fan of Privateer Press stuff. So there you go. And Iron Kingdoms, they're just releasing a new setting, I think, in a couple months. I think it's in the works right now. So, but that's not the only news. We've got a ton of it, and I'm going to let other people talk here because I don't have anything nice to say about this next one. And I'm hoping somebody can be a little more constructive while I have some of my thoughts. So, Sigil, the virtual tabletop that was being developed by Hasbro Wizards of the Coast, I'm going to mainly focus on the Hasbro portion of this, released. And nobody knew about it because it got zero fanfare. There was no PR from Wizards about it. There was an email back in February that was asking for beta feedback that Liz mentioned. And then not only did it release to zero fanfare, they laid off 90% of the dev staff. So about 30 people, which is a lot for such a small development team. Again, 90%. And I guess the plan is to leave it available, but there's going to be no future development plans for it. So this grand AI adventure that they were going to go on with, virtual tabletop and letting you play the game as if it was on the tabletop virtually, the grand experiment failed before it ever launched, or at least that's what they decided, because that's a thing. So who wants to talk about this before I go on a rant?
Sigil is really interesting in that it did have some grand ambitions of recreating a tabletop experience on your computer. It ran in Unreal Engine 5, which meant you could have these great video game style graphics. Obviously, we're coming off of Baldur's Gate 3. Everyone is super into D&D video games because Baldur's Gate 3 did so amazingly. And you're recreating something like that where you can tell your own stories and do that inside this software, and it'll look like a video game, but you have your own miniatures that have a little bit of animation, you have some spells built in, and this is a really ambitious idea. This is also something I feel that no one actually asked for. That it was a product in search of an audience, because I think a lot of people who are playing games virtually, what you want is better maps, better ways to deal with your party, better ways to look at character options and spells. You are looking to cover these basics. How can you share a map with people who are not in the same room? How can you share your character information? You're looking for these virtual tabletop basics. This is virtual tabletop very complicated. And it didn't do a great job of integrating stuff from, it integrated some stuff from D&D Beyond, like character sheets, but it wasn't 100%. This feels like an early draft of something that could have been really cool.
Yeah,
it wasn't something for me.
That integration with D&D Beyond, I thought, was like one of its biggest selling points, right? Because right now, if you've ever played in a virtual tabletop, and I'll just throw this out there for like Roll20 or Foundry, Virtual Tabletop Foundry, or any number of other ones, there are third-party plugins that you can add to your browser, or that you can add to whatever you're working with that virtual tabletop to pull data in from D&D Beyond. It's not naturally integrated. And so the idea of having something that didn't rely on a third party was very big for a lot of folks. Like when we were doing the Wild Beyond the Witchlight live stream stuff, not for this site, but I was in a live play group for another one. We all had this stuff installed on our browsers to transfer data back and forth because it was the only way to do it efficiently and effectively, so that even like the person running the game had access to the data. And then that also meant that they were spending a lot of time customizing maps, and the idea that, it could just pull in maps from the resources that you get on D&D Beyond, because every module you buy, every book you buy has maps, and reducing the amount of setup time in there was a really big selling point. And I think it could have been really, really cool and really, really good if it was Wizards producing this back in the early 2000s versus Wizards owned by Hasbro now, because it became all about that bottom dollar, and not about making a good product, I think.
And what gets me is they have a good product that you can use as a VTT, and that already integrates with D&D Beyond. It's D&D Beyond Maps. It's already there. Yeah. It's amazingly easy to use. And so they were essentially competing with themselves with a half-baked product that, I'm sorry, Hasbro was never going to put in the money to bring this up to be the level of, say, Tailspire, which anybody who's seen Dimension 20 knows that there is a room and an audience for a 3D virtual tabletop system, but there's already a good one.
Yeah, you're saying, Liz?
I mean, the thing is that over the past few years, D&D Beyond's map-making tools have gotten a lot better. They have started including maps with books. They've also started going back to old books and adding maps. So D&D and they're, creating your own maps, making scenarios, all of those tools on D&D Beyond have gotten better. And if you want to run a game, those are kind of the basics you need. So they did this thing that was all fancy graphics, high system requirements, technical glitches. When they already have such a solid base product, it just feels like this is a little half-baked. It's going out a little early, and I don't think the audience was there. And certainly not with the level of bugginess it came out with.
Yeah, I think the audience could have been there for something like this, because I think way back in the day, and I know Matt and I have talked about this, and I know Phil will remember this as well. In the times of third edition and 3.5, you got the cartographer disc that came with your player's handbook, and that was some of the
Still have it.
Yeah, I still have it as well. But it was one of the greatest set of tools that digitally had ever been made at that time. Digital character sheets, digital map making, digital world building, all on a program that ran on your computer. And I think having something that is made by Wizards first party, there's always going to be a market for that. There's always going to be people that are interested in that. And they could have done something really cool by spending the time and doing a longer development on it. But I think that's the problem with these. These things need longer developments. And if you don't give yourself that long development, you don't give it that time to percolate, there's just nothing for you to do. Like it'll have those glitches, it'll have problems, it'll have, issues and high requirements because you're not optimizing it. And it's really sad because, like, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit excited. Like Liz is saying that nobody asked for it, and that's true. But some of the best things that we've gotten in terms of like role playing or just content in general, nobody asked for. So like it could have been really, really cool. It just wasn't. And they never gave it the chance. It was dead on arrival, which is a shame, but kind of what I've come to expect from Hasbro and Wizards of the Cult at this point. So
All right. I've been thinking while you guys have been talking about it, about like how it had a lot of potential, but wasn't quite there yet, and so forth. Is like the thing that really comes to my mind is the marketing on this was abysmal.
Yeah.
I mean, they started off well. Like they had this big thing they were showing everybody. I think 2-3 years ago now, they were like, "This will be the future, and it's coming for the 50th year of Dungeons and Dragons."
It looked cool.
It did look cool, and then nothing, crickets, just silence. And clearly, they had a team working on it because they just fired all of them, so they were there. We know they exist because now they don't. And I just, every time I think about it, I'm like, you keep talking about how it's, I think the statement that you made that really made me stop and really start thinking of it was that it was a solution in search of a problem, that nobody had asked for this. And I don't think it's necessarily that nobody was asking for it, although I certainly do agree with you that no one was. I think it's that it didn't understand the assignment. Like, it's trying to make this beautiful, graphically inclusive, looks like a video game VTT, all of which is fine, but it's barely a VTT.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have the functionality of Roll20. Roll20, which is not that functional. When I look at your VTT and I say, well, I could do this easier on Roll20, even Roll20 wants to slap me.
Yeah.
Even Roll20 is like, no, you can't pop. No, actually, we do that better. What happened? We're the best at not being good at these things. How did they come in and swoop in? Looking that good is great, but it needs to not just look good. It needs to be useful. And not that it couldn't be used. You could use this. I've been looking at it. I've been playing with it the past couple of days when I could. You could use it, but you'd immediately start pulling, like if you had hair, you'd start pulling it out. Because it's just, I'm sitting there going, it's harder to figure out how to change the size of something in this than it is in Roll20. Like if you're using Foundry, you would not switch from Foundry to this, no matter how pretty it is. You know what I mean?
And
to a certain
the other
degree,
thing is, I don't think Liz couldn't use it if she wanted to, because there's no Mac version.
Well, it's Unreal Engine, so it has pretty high system requirements in the first place. And you can't play it on the Mac, which I understand. That's not a deal breaker for a lot of people. I wouldn't have been using it, though. I'm not the target audience. You can't use it on a browser when a lot of VTTs are browser-based to make them easily accessible to more people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
you
think-
want to be able to run it on your Chromebook.
Yeah, yeah. I think Matt
Not
was right.
us.
Like by not marketing it, they never really had a chance to get the target audience because they never got it. They never put it in front of you to go, hey, here's why you would want this cool thing over something else. And then now there isn't one. Like when I saw that beta email go out back in February, I didn't really look into it because I'm only in one D&D game right now, and we're using Fantasy Grounds. But I was like, well, that's cool. Maybe they'll get some feedback, and it'll be cool in a year or two when it releases. And then when I got the news they'd laid off 90% of the team, I was like, they released it? When?
Yeah, exactly. That was the other problem with it. It's like, in order to find it, I had to like go hunting pecking through the internet. It's like
I still don't know where I would go get this thing if I wanted to.
It's
a D&D Beyond.
D&D Beyond, yeah.
And they are going to keep releasing some things for it that were already developed. There's apparently a skeleton staff to continue support for it and to release work that's been finished or mostly finished. But yeah, we can't expect any future development on it.
That's good. You want your development team to be resistant to piercing damage. That's fine.
Unfortunately, they don't have climb speed.
No.
Well, it's not the only weird project coming out this year. I mean, I'm hoping this isn't a sign of what's to come for other folks as well. But until this was mentioned here, I forgot that this was even happening. Apparently, there's an Eberron book releasing this year. And yeah, like I know that they had quasi mentioned it at some point, but I had no idea. Did any of you?
I did, but only because I'm a literal maniac for Eberron. And I still only found out the day before Liz posted the link. I was like dealing with my wife and she wasn't doing well. And you guys all know about this, but I came in to tell you guys, I literally logged in to tell you guys about it. And Liz had already mentioned it. And I was like, I could have stayed in bed. I could have stayed in bed, man. I didn't have to. And that's like, if I only find out about it the day before Liz finds out about it, Liz, who does not care about Eberron. That's fair,
I care
right?
about Eberron.
Have you ever played in Eberron?
No.
I've played every version of Eberron that's come out.
Okay. It is safe to say that you are more knowledgeable about this than I am.
But nothing to do with knowledge. It's just that I'm literally a maniac for this. I wanted to know about it. I was looking for it, and I only found out the day before you posted the link, which meant you knew about it around the same time I did. Because you found out about it the day before you mentioned it.
See,
Like,
this
you know what I mean?
is...
And that's not great marketing again. I really feel like whatever they did over at Wizards of the Coast, like, did they kill the marketing department?
Yeah, they did.
Maybe that got laid off at Christmas.
No, 100%. Did you guys not remember that? Like,
I remember them laying a lot of them off.
They
I don't
laid
know
off
how many of them they kept.
All of their PR and all of their marketing folks got laid off. That's why there's no more like Dragon podcasts and stuff like that.
That was the Christmas layoffs, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
That explains it. I kept trying to figure out how much was even left. So yeah, that explains a lot.
I found out about this because I saw the Unearthed Arcana about artificers. I'm like, wait, there's Unearthed Arcana about artificers? What? And it was at the bottom of a D&D Beyond newsletter. And so I went and looked at it. And then I saw, there's a video on their YouTube page talking about it. And I'm like listening to him talk about the artificer. And he says, this will be in our Eberron book releasing later this year. And I'm like, what? There's an Eberron book? But because Wizards of the Coast announced their slate of 2025 books. And we, in fact, talked about this in our last podcast, saying it's kind of a slow year.
Mm-hmm.
They're finishing to release last year's D&D edition. And they're doing...
Yeah, they just finished that.
Yeah, they're doing a dragon anthology, and they're doing Forgotten Realms, which I think the Forgotten Realms books seem really cool, but that was supposed to be the whole year. But apparently in January, they announced at a press event that, we're doing an Eberron book. We're doing an Eberron book, and it's a little unclear what this is gonna look like. Ian News said this about it. At one point, Eberron Forge of the Artificer was described as Xanathar's Guide to Everything book, but specific to Eberron. The book will also have a different page count and price point than typical D&D rulebooks, although no further details were given.
This reminds me of that statement. That's a similar statement to what they made in 3rd edition when they were releasing the Gadgeteers. And the Gadgeteers were half the price of a hardcover book. And but knowing Hasbro, it's not going to be half the price. It's going to be double the price or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very confused as to what we're getting. I think Eberron is a really interesting setting. I think steampunk settings are really interesting because they hit that border between magic and technology, which I think is a really interesting space to tell stories and to talk about technological advancement and how that works in a fantasy world. I think that is super cool. I want to play a game set in Eberron. Help me out here. Also, I want to play an Artificer. They are great, so I am glad to see they're doing updates there. But now I know they're releasing an Eberron book. I'm excited about it. I still have no idea what they're releasing.
Well, this is a weird thing. I was going to say, here's the weird thing from my aspect. I run a game shop. I didn't know this was coming.
Nope.
I have,
and it's due out in...
Go ahead.
It's due out in August.
Yeah, I have no solicitation for it. And usually, usually Wizards gives you like a 6-month window to like a 6-month or more window to like order something. And it's like, what are you doing? Like this is baffling. Like this is I joked about this in chat, but it really does feel like Hasbro is speed running Ruin, WotC, and all goodwill any percent. Because go ahead, Matt.
I'm going to point out something that I think is related to the kind of weirdness we're seeing. They're doing a Forgotten Realms book, which is fine, whatever. They basically put in the DMG a complete Greyhawk setting. Did you know that?
No, and I've been asking, and I've been begging for a Greyhawk book.
Like, I meant before it came out. Did you know that? I know that people who got the book read it and found out.
They talked for the entire PR cycle for the DMG, which got more PR than this book did, that Greyhawk was going to be the new setting in the DMG. They
talked about the PR cycle. Where did they talk about it?
On D&D Beyond and the videos on YouTube. Everywhere that they talked about the content of the DMG, they discussed that Greyhawk was going to be in the book.
Think about what would have happened when they had a marketing. They would have been everywhere.
They did. This was all last year before they were fired at Christmas.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I just, even with that, this was something that caught a lot of people off guard. I know this because I was looking at the Eric Noah site, which is not called that anymore, but and it's just so weird to me that they did that. They just put all that stuff in the DMG. And it's interesting because now the DMG actually has a setting in it.
Yeah, the DMG had the setting for Greyhawk. Yeah, but then there's supposed to be a box set.
Yeah, well, it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
When you buy the DMG now, though, you get a campaign setting. That's interesting, and it makes a bit of sense. And yet, barely even noticed it. The Forgotten Realms books, that 2 are coming out of that. They did Kryn a little while ago, and now that's basically completely forgotten. They have done nothing with it since. I don't know what they're doing with their book releases. I feel like just 2 years ago, they had a great momentum going. I think Joe was talking about the speedrun thing. I feel like they went from having this great momentum and great release schedule to just like, it's crazy now.
Listen, I'm not going to try to beat that horse because like we've talked about it a lot, but I will point out that this is everything we called out, right? Like, and we're not the only ones. Every content producer, everybody who plays these games has done the same thing. During the pandemic, when Wizards of the Coast made $1 billion in profit for Hasbro, that's when the downfall started. Because up until that point, Hasbro had been ignoring Wizards of the Coast and focusing on their toy brands and the other IPs that they own and their crossovers for things like Nerf, and all sorts of the other stuff. Like the Fortnitification of Magic is not a mistake because the Fortnitification of Nerf happened first. And Hasbro wants to make all the money. And the minute Wizards hit that $1 billion mark during the pandemic, from selling D&D books because of Critical Role success and all the other tabletop like live plays that happened, Magic selling out like hotcakes because people were at home building decks and playing on Spell Table and had extra money from, if you were in the States, from the stimulus stuff that was going out. Hasbro saw that and like, great, all of our businesses need to be $1 billion businesses and just mine this for everything it's worth. And that was the first mark of death against like how things were. And so now you see it everywhere. It's the bottom dollar. It's the bottom line. It has to be maximized. They want to leverage anything that makes it cheaper to produce and maximize the profit. That's why even now, as a shop runner, I have a hard time carrying their product because most of the people that are going to buy the product from me, I've already bought it from them because they get the PDF with the book and they get it 2 weeks early. And it's not always the case. Sometimes they throw us a bone and it's like, oh, you can get this at your local store, before you can order it online. That is a rarity, right? And then now you see all these other IPs coming into like Magic, and they're doing it because they're selling that product space. Like this year, we have Spider-Man coming, which, okay, I'm going to be a filthy hypocrite about that one, but that's a whole other story. But Final Fantasy is releasing in a couple weeks, or not a couple weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. And then there's another Universes Beyond happening later this year. 50% of the content they produce for Magic the Gathering is not Magic's IP, and that's not accidental, and that didn't exist at all as a thing to worry about in this quantity outside of Secret Layers before Hasbro noticed that Wizards made money. And every decision they've made since then has been trying to squeeze as much juice as they can out of this IP at the cost of the IP. And it sucks because people who love this stuff like us, people who grew up with this stuff, people who like me, who D&D literally saved my life as a kid, as a teenager. If it wasn't for D&D, I would not be here talking to you. It's hard to see all this stuff like just not get the attention and respect I think it deserves. And as long as Hasbro's in charge, I don't think it ever will. Like the whole Greyhawk thing, having it released. Greyhawk was one of the OG settings. Like it wasn't like the OG, but it was one of the OG. It's where one of the things where Gygax actually ran his campaign world. It's where a lot of the iconic spells that we know today came from. And having it in the Dungeon Master's Guide, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Have a setting there, absolutely great. And then there's supposed to be a box set that people have seen and we've heard nothing about. I don't have any solicitation for it. I have no clue when the Greyhawk book is going to come out. It'll probably be like the Eberron thing. It'll be announced like, oh, it's going to release in 4 months, and nobody's going to know it's coming because they've gutted everything so that there's no information anywhere about any of this stuff. So I'm sorry. I got on my rant. I was trying not to, but it's like, it's painful to watch because this is stuff we love. At least to me it is. So.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree that it's painful to watch it. But I also think it's just, I've wanted for a very long time to see some of the stuff that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Like not just big rivals like Paizo and second tier like Green Ronin or what have you, but the flourishing of smaller easier rule systems games, the fact that there's like entire publishers like like the ones that do Masks and Avatar, they can exist in the current ecosystem.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it feels like D&D had to take a hit for that to happen.
Yeah, I think
because it was just too overwhelmingly big.
I think there's an element of that, right? I think there's definitely an element of that, and it's sort of the inevitable thing. And I don't want to sit too long on it because we have got some other stuff that I would like to talk about that is positive. But yeah, you might be right. And the way that the market is in order for those little ones to get attention, the big one had to fall. But I just wish it would have fallen just out of its own popularity or something like that, not because somebody decided that it needed to sell the ivory tusks, as it were.
Yeah. It's sort of like they got the goose with the golden egg, and rather than be happy with the golden eggs, they got the thing open to see where the gold is.
You're not wrong.
I do.
We got to talk about. Go ahead, Liz. Sorry.
I am still excited about Eberron. I would love to play an Eberron game when this comes out.
I would too. Matt and I had that wonderful Warforged character. We love Eberron.
Oh, yes. I'm very excited about
run
this.
an Eberron game.
I would love to play an Eberron game.
Yeah, so we can talk about that when the book's out.
But I do want to talk about something that I think is a little, a couple things that are, I think, again, more positive. Speaking of smaller games, I just want to mention this real quick. We're also seeing the emergence of 5th edition, or whatever they're calling it now. We'll always call it 5e. Compatible stuff is still coming out regularly. And we're starting to see things like right now, now there's a new campaign setting based around Slavic and Balkan folklore.
Zamoran has actually been on my radar for a while.
Yeah,
I'm totally into that stuff. What's really interesting is that it is, like you pointed out, it's a 5e compatible thing. It's basically the original 5e rules more than it is the more updated stuff, just because that's what they had when they were working on it. They have obviously made some efforts to make it compatible with the new stuff too. But what's really cool about it is that Slavic and Baltic stuff does not get nearly as much,
despite how much of it winds up in pop culture and media, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, like Perun's one of my favorite ridiculous gods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Just because he's like Thor if Thor were drunk all the time.
So like
Thor. It's just so like Thor, but not. I don't know how to explain it. there's a lot of cool stuff. Like one of the things I'm loving is that it taps into stuff like the whole idea of the witch in the big walking house.
Yep.
The Baba Yaga thing. Baba Yaga's in a lot of D&D, but not all the other stuff. Like there's not a lot of Kashi the Deathless or the Firebird or Pushkin type stuff. And this really does have all these interesting tinges of that kind of stuff. And it's even got a Legends in the Mist version, which is really cool to me. Like they're going to have dual system content. So it's going to have Legend in the Mist stuff right next to its D20 5th edition type D&D stuff.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, no, because I mean, Liz was just talking about Legend in the Mist, which is itself like a second RPG built on the Mist stuff. Isn't there a previous game for that? I can't remember the name, but I know there's a previous game. What?
There's two. There was City in the Mist, or City of Mist, which is their urban noir investigation supernatural system, and then there is Cyberscape, which is the only thing I've seen that comes close to Shadowrun in terms of combining mystical and cyberpunk settings.
Don't forget Torg, man.
That's true. Torg.
I will every so often.
Torg is amazing.
But
Legend in the Mist has Son of Oak and Legend in the Mist have been plugging this Kickstarter extremely heavily on their own highly successful Kickstarter.
Yeah, and they should be, because their content's going to get here too. And I think that's amazing. I love the idea of there being two different kinds of rules that you can use with a game. I think that's awesome. But yeah, so there's a Legends of the Mist video right here on the page for I can never say this word, Zeminora. Zeminora. And it's really neat. There's just a lot of cool things about this book. Just looking at the Kickstarter, which is already funded. It's got all this like really weird monster hunting. There's Bogateers in there. There's a lot of cool things. They have stuff that is very much fantasy and will be recognizable to you if your only experience is D&D, but is very different from anything you usually see in D&D.
Yeah.
And the puppet magic is terrifying. They call it puppet magic, but it is terrifying. The idea of somebody doing puppet magic, and it's with the puppets. You're using puppets for this.
Just go watch the Puppet Master movies.
Yeah, it's got some stuff. It's got some creepy in here. Joe and I have talked a lot about that, how we feel about horror. But I think this is a really good way to bring horror into a fantasy action role playing type situation, because you can still fight this stuff, but it's creepy even if you do. You do not feel like this is something that's just I'll just smash it, because you know dang well that puppet thing isn't killable. It's a puppet. So there's some crazy stuff to this. There's straight up folklore magic, which is really cool. There's just a lot of stuff, and they have got a ton of stuff for curses too. I'm just really excited about this.
I can tell,
because it is it's a mythos and like it's a fairy tale / mythology that we don't get a lot of over here, like in Northern Europe. I mean, Northern Europe, North America. We don't get a lot of that stuff. Yeah. So,
well, something that I think on a completely different vibe, and I'm going to poke Phil about this one, is Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, which was nominated for a Nebula Award for Best Game Writing. Phil, what is this game?
Yep. So this is the second game from Jay Dragon, who previously did Wonderhome.
Woo!
Yep, and is now the creative director for Steve Jackson Games. Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, the best way I would describe it is this is like playing in a Studio Ghibli movie. It's one of those more freeform games Liz isn't super fond of, but the idea is you get the book, you get a preset group of characters, which is both the residents and the extremely weird guest list of a bed and breakfast somewhere on the East Coast owned by a witch named Yazeba, who allegedly traded her heart for the bed and breakfast. But you also get characters like Gertrude, a teenage runaway who lives in the laundry room, or Hey Kid, a demon who was abandoned on the doorstep as a baby and grew up in the bed and breakfast and is literally called Hey Kid, or Parrish, the former knight who is now the chef of the bed and breakfast. Also, he's a frog. And you get, like, each chapter, there's also a ton of guests, too, and the guests are all super cool and have their own reason for being there. And then each chapter of this book, which, much like Triangle Agency, there are sections that can be unlocked later. Spoilers have come to role-playing games now. but like each one is like a little scene. Like there's one, and it kind of dictates like which residents people can play. So you have kind of an ever-changing cast of characters instead of playing one character. Like one of the first chapters is Gertrude and Hey Kid are required, and then anybody who is too playful to be cooped up. You're basically trying to entertain Hey Kid on a rainy day. Or there's one where a little more serious when Yazeba's shadow escapes from her and is kind of wrecking the place and scaring guests, and it's up to Yazeba and her robotic maid to try and catch it again. Just lots of little like cool scenes like that. And that's pretty much like what most of the chapters are about. They're all themed around different characters. There's a lot of different like, identity stuff. Like with the robot, they all play a little differently. Like the robot maid has literally her character sheet page has programming on it. And as she grows and advances, her programming changes. And if she ever has a conflict, she has to ask someone to change her programming because the robot is still trying to figure out who she is, things like that. It's just like, it's a very cozy kind of homey game. It really does have like a big Studio Ghibli vibe, very rules light, very kind of improv group storytelling. Everybody's bed and breakfast is going to be a little different. You've got your cast, you've got your setting, but everything's going to be kind of different depending on who you play it with. And I've actually been flipping through it again recently because there are rules both for playing with small groups, large groups, online, and also playing solo. This is the kind of group I can't really get people interested in. I can't really get people interested in to play it with me in real life, but I am very interested in. I might start playing it solo. And it's just a really cool kind of cozy, kind of, I won't say necessarily upbeat, but just kind of a cool little setting, well written characters. And like each of these little chapters is just different enough that even though you're it's not just completely freeform, you're doing something cool in each one. And I'd say it might just kind of a little positive game in I
like it.
Not necessarily so positive real world.
I like it because it definitely starkly contrasts with the next thing that I'm going to talk about briefly, which is Fallout.
Oh yeah.
Which is really just a positive, glowing thing in a world.
At this
not
point,
so happy.
it might be.
Well, it's glowing.
Yes.
The Fallout RPG, which, as I believe this was a note added by Liz, is definitely not new. It's been around for a while. As a matter of fact, I have the entire collection sitting both digitally and on my shelf because I absolutely love the 2D20 system. I
got my Fallout stuff when they did a sale.
They did a Humble Bundle as well.
The Humble Bundle. That's where I got mine.
But the interesting thing here is that it's integrating with Demiplane, which is really, really big. So part of this is because they've had some integration in the past with Fantasy Grounds as the primary virtual tabletop system that they produce their virtual tabletop content for. And the Fallout system has a lot of virtual tabletop content. And I mean a ton of it. Like there's at least, I think, a dozen modules. Books, settings, campaigns, maps, everything that you can import directly into Fantasy Grounds. But now with Demiplane, it gives you the option to actually have another avenue to have simple PDF copies of the stuff, which most of their virtual tabletop stuff does do a pretty good job of that, but not all of it. And have a way to manage your characters, and that makes it just much, much easier than trying to integrate it, because as much as I love virtual tabletops, Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds character sheets are hot garbage. I don't know why.
Yeah.
They are just absolutely god-awful.
I think you are overpraising them when you say they're hot garbage. I feel like they're very
Garbage
old,
lukewarm.
cold, not useful.
Like a
decaying
WoW,
garbage.
like a WoW boss. This is garbage on fire that you don't want to be on fire.
It's trying. They're
I keep standing in the
trying.
garbage
It's just-
terminals.
The problem with something like Roll20 is that it is an older system. It's a clunky system, and D&D Beyond came out, and D&D Beyond had this very streamlined character creator, which Demiplane is very similar to.
Yeah.
And it makes a whole gaming world more accessible when, instead of reading a 300-page rule book or more, you can go to this character creator and say, okay, I want to make, these are my race options. Oh, these are my class options. Oh, these are the spells I can use. These are the abilities and it's all there, and you can do it, click through, and you can learn more later. Learn as you go, learn as you create characters. I think that has done huge things for tabletop gaming and letting people get into it.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about it before. It reduces the barrier to entry, and anything that reduces the barrier to entry means more people play it. And like Phil's problem with getting people to play something like, Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, but being able to play it solo is great. I can't play Fallout solo, and getting people to play Fallout is a huge pain because nobody wants to buy the books or character creation being a struggle.
Also, you've never actually offered, Joe. You said to me, Matt, would you like to play in Fallout? I'd be at your house in a suit of power armor. You know this, so I don't know why you're acting. You guys are like, I can't find people. I've heard a couple of you say this now. I'm sitting there going, you have not mentioned this to me. I would have been there.
Regardless, the struggle in real life is
real.
there, and having something where people can easily be walked through character creation is good. And Demiplane,
if you don't, I totally agree. I'm trying not to interrupt you because I know I just.
it's one of those things where Demiplane does a good job. They're still working on it and tweaking it and making it as good as it can be, and it's still constantly evolving. And I think it'll be fine. And the more games that integrate with it, the better it is. There are a couple other things I just want to touch on real quick. And then I think because we're running short on time here. Go ahead, Liz.
I do want to add one thing about the Fallout is that it's in early access on Demiplane, but because it's just launching on Demiplane, they are selling it as a bundle with the Demiplane version, PDF version, and Roll20 version for $35.
Worth every penny.
And that's
good.
Worth every penny. And if you want every single Fallout book, not just the core rulebook, that's $99, which it's money, but it's less money than you would pay if you were buying all of these things.
Yeah,
so I think
it's less than buying 2 D&D books.
Yeah. So
that is fair.
Demiplane, PDF, and Roll20. I love that those are all bundled together, so you have options on how to read it and where to play it.
Someday I'll get someone to bring Gamma.
All right. Well, we got a couple other things just to touch on real quick before we call it there. Shadow Dark, who wants to talk about that?
I'll talk about it since I put it on here. Just barely beating out Fallen London and the Magnus Archive, Shadow Dark got our first $1 million tabletop Kickstarter of the year. Woo! In that they are finally releasing their second big product and official setting, the Western Reaches. Well, official, I say. So this takes kind of the implied setting from the Shadow Dark core book and the 3 zines that they've released so far, the 3 Cursed Scroll zines. Then they're releasing 3 new issues along with this, and it's coming out as a nice hardcover sandbox setting for Shadow Dark. And yeah, it blew through its funding goal very quickly. And it is just kind of cool to see more support for this game. I'm particularly excited more about the zines than the giant core rulebook. The Cursed Scrolls are inexpensive, and you can usually pick them up directly from the same place you can get Shadow Dark, the Arcane Library, or Drive-Thru RPG, and they always just have every one of them comes with new classes, new settings, a complete hex crawl that's statted out that you can use, mini adventures, and they're all very flavorful. So cool to see this very, I would say, big name indie game, as weird as that sounds, getting further support. So.
All right. And then last on the list, looks like this was added here. We have a Frosthaven tactical CRPG coming out based on the Gloomhaven Frosthaven board games.
I added that.
Yeah. Well, so what's going on with that?
It's basically, it's simultaneously a really cool thing to get more exposure towards the Gloomhaven Frosthaven games of all types. But it's also basically an incredibly cynical attempt to grab some of that Baldur's Gate 3 money and repute. But I don't mind that because we're not going to get any more Baldur's Gate 3. There will be no expansions for it. Despite being the most successful game of 2024, it's effectively done. I mean, they're still putting out patches for it and so forth, but you know what I'm saying. There won't be any more of this. So we're seeing games like Solasta come out. Solasta is literally just 5e, and they're putting out Solasta 2, which is literally just 2024, using the rules that they released through Creative Commons. This is basically just trying to get more attention at people who like video games, but also like role-playing games or tabletop board games. And that's something that I find interesting too, is that the line between pen and paper role-playing games and board games is getting blurry. There's a lot of games that are kind of both. And Gloomhaven / Frosthaven is a really big example of that, in my opinion. And to a certain degree, a game like this is what it's basically. Sooner or later, somebody is going to realize that Neverwinter Nights, which is still out, by the way, it's still getting content released for it in 2025. They just got a new DLC, and they'll have another DLC coming this year. that game had an editor that allowed you to basically run your own D&D games through Neverwinter Nights, which is exactly what Sigil tried to be. And sooner or later, some game like this is going to come along and realize that they can do that. And that's what I think is interesting about this Frosthaven game. It's got all these functions that are very similar to that kind of experience. It's got to build your own outpost system. It's got the importable co-op multiplayer. So you can get up to 4 players playing this game together, like a party. There's just a lot of stuff you can do with it. Eventually, someone is going to make a mod for it where it's going to have its own, which is what they're doing in Baldur's Gate 3 right now. And sooner or later, somebody that isn't Wizards of the Coast is going to make something that it can be used the way they wanted Sigil to be used. And who knows, they might even mod Sigil because it's Unreal Engine 5. And seeing Frosthaven come to this is just really surprising to me. It's really not a game I would have called getting a tactical RPG, but it's a perfect game to pick to make a tactical RPG because it is itself basically a tactical board game. So it works really well.
I was going to say, you mentioned something, and I think it's going to be absolutely hilarious because what eventually will happen is the developers that they just laid off from Sigil will probably just make their own version of Sigil and make it work because we literally have seen that happen how many times at this point?
I mean, yeah, we have. But also because those developers know the game and they know the system they just made, which was released already, and it's Unreal Engine 5. So even if they can't use any of the code that they've been using to make Sigil, it's Unreal Engine 5. They can make something else in Unreal Engine 5. It's not going to be a strain on them.
Liz, you were saying something?
I was going to ask, what is Frosthaven? I do not know what this is.
Do you remember Gloomhaven?
No.
Okay, well, Gloomhaven came out as a board game that was very heavily fantasy role-playing skewed, for lack of a word. It's you play these characters in this gloomy world, and you go forth looking for adventure and treasure and all that stuff. Frosthaven is another dark fantasy version of it.
Should also mention that it is a persistent world where the game is...
Oh, interesting.
The game changes as you play and keep going.
Yeah, you literally don't have to stop.
A persistent world board game.
Yes. It's also available on Steam, by the way. They have a digital version of it.
Okay.
The Steam version is very, very well done and also takes away a lot of the extra bookkeeping and rule memorization that you might have to do for the board game version, and also doesn't weigh 80 pounds if you want to take it to your
kind of like when I want to play Scythe. I'll play it online versus taking it with me. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and for that matter, I mean, that's one of the reasons why this is a good thing for Frosthaven. Because in its combination of what Liz was talking about before, when she said it's good to have something like D&D Beyond or Nexus because they take away a lot of the bookkeeping. Playing Frosthaven this way,
which already feels like an upgraded Gloomhaven, let's be honest, because it handles a lot of things better. And
playing Frosthaven that way, you're going to end up basically using it for your single player and co-op multiplayer. And once you start playing co-op multiplayer in it, you are an adventurer. And since it's a persistent world, you can keep playing it and playing it and playing it. It'd be like, imagine how addictive Cyberpunk would be if you could just keep going forever and you didn't have to start over it if you wanted to see stuff. Think about this. There's a lot of good things about this. I'm very happy about it. Frosthaven's very well done. The art's beautiful. It's a good game that I never got to play because I don't know enough people playing board games. And yes, I should have called you guys.
Because we can play on Steam.
Yeah, before we hoist me on my own petard. But yeah, no, it is a cool game. It is hard to explain. It's sort of like D&D very light. It kind of reminds me of back when D&D was just a chainmail edition. It almost feels a little bit like that, where it's got more rules than your average RPG, but less rules than your average RPG at the same time.
It's the board gamification of it, which I think is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. But I think that does it for us, unless anybody has anything else they want to add here at the last second. All right. Well, then, friends, Blizzard Watch is made possible due to the generous contributions at patreon.com/BlizzardWatch. Your continued support means that this podcast slating community is able to thrive and grow. Blizzard Watch supporters enjoy exclusive benefits like early access to our podcast, a better chance at having your question answered on our podcast, or the queue in an ads-free site experience. If you have questions for us here, please send them in. I wanted to actually do questions on Tavern Watch, and I know we have a ton of people that do listen to this and are tabletop players of any type. send them in. It's podcast@blizzardwatch.com. Specify the show that it's for in the subject line, as well as any special pronunciation for your name. You can also hit us up on Discord. The QM Podcast Questions channel is open for everybody. Same rules apply. If you happen to support us on Patreon as a way of saying thank you for helping us keep the lights on, we have the Patreon QM Podcast Questions channel set aside where we tend to look there first as that special extra thank you. And you can also send us messages on Patreon. Liz sends those to us. She does. It's great. We make her do stuff. It's fantastic. But I think that's going to do it, folks. We'll see you on the next one. And special thanks for Phil for joining us. I enjoy having another voice that likes weird games on this podcast.
Oh, I got all kinds of weird games.
Fallen London made $1 million this year.
Oh,
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
and we're going to be talking about that at some point. All right, friends.
Yeah.
We'll see you.
We got a year. Gotta wait a year for these to come out, though. I want to play them all now.
We got plenty to talk about within that year. All right, everybody. We'll catch you next time.